Chapter 18, Create Your Own Destiny. Every man's destiny is of his own making. He is either its master or it masters him. He who has knowledge and desire may steer his ship of life anywhere he will, but he who has little knowledge and desire is not even aware that he has a rudder with which to steer his ship of life. When you look out upon the sea of life, you will find that there are very few really great men, very many mediocre men, and countless thousands of men whose measure of knowledge and desire is very low. Why is this? Every man inherits all that God has to give. Nature does not deal unfairly or selectively with her gifts. The only difference between all men is a difference in desire. That one quality and nothing more. A man either desires to achieve or he does not desire to. He who deeply desires to achieve will gain the knowledge which he needs for achievement and the power to express that knowledge. Desire is always followed by willing effort. He who deeply desires anything loves the effort which he must exert to obtain his desire. But he whose desire is weak lacks incentive for effort and therefore makes none. Every man who has ever become great becomes so only because he desired to, planned to, and made the effort to become so. There are no accidentally great men. All great men build themselves in their own image. That which they become, they first desired to become. They thought out and planned every step upward to their own high mountaintop. The great difference between all people lies not in their ability, but in the difference of intensity of desire to express their abilities. It must be remembered that desire of mind is the sole source of universal energy. The greater the intensity of desire in the mind of any man, the greater power he has to express his ability. It follows as a matter of course that his achievement is greater. Consider two men who desire to become great runners. Each has the same ability if both are normal at birth, but great desire gives a greater horsepower to ability than a lesser desire. The greater the desire, the greater the measure of love that goes into every effort in daily training. Lesser desire lessens the measure of effort. Drudgery and monotony then creep into ability instead of love, and the work toward achievement ceases long before the man of intense desire even thinks of tiring. Desire to become a runner and the effort of expressing that desire builds the body in the image of a runner, but the excellence of the body itself is dependent solely upon the measure of desire to make the body excellent for its purpose. Two men of different measures of desire, therefore, create more or less excellent body machines which are appropriate to the purpose of running. The difference is in desire only, not in ability. Demosthenes had less ability to become an orator than a man with a better speaking mechanism, but his desire overcame that. It is well known that he increased his difficulty of speaking by putting pebbles into his mouth to improve his voice mechanism through difficult exercises. I knew a fine pianist who had less physical ability than another fine pianist, for his fingers were short and stubby in comparison with the other's long, slim fingers, but desire was so strong in him that the handicap and physical disability disappeared. To exemplify my meaning regarding the characteristic of nature to build one's body in the image of one's desire, one need only to realize that the man who desires to be a runner becomes a runner with a runner's long, lithe, supple body. He does not become a pugilist with a pugilist's stout, coarse, muscular body. Had he commanded his body to become the body of a pugilist instead of a runner, it would have obeyed his command as implicitly as it obeyed his command to become a runner. This exemplifies the fact that every man has command over matter to the extent that his desire to command it gives him the knowledge which enables him to command it. Everyone knows that Theodore Roosevelt had a very weak body in childhood, but the power of his intense desire to have a strong body gave him such command over the materials which constructed his body that he became a very strong man physically. As a child, he had very little endurance. He so forcefully commanded his body to become like the image he had in mind that it became like it. Desire followed by effort will always command growing bodies. My husband, who was an intimate friend of Theodore Roosevelt, as well as being official painter for his children, told me that before Mr. Roosevelt became president, his greatest pleasure was in spending grueling hours on western cattle ranches, compelling his body to excel the work of every cowboy on the ranch. After he became president, his greatest pleasures were chopping down trees in the early morning and taking long rides, which called for great endurance. Very often during those early days, he performed more than what the average man would call a good day's work before he actually began his regular day of work. Those who knew him well say that they never heard him say that he was tired. But one of the greatest demonstrations of the power of mind to command matter is that of Gil Sonostein of Columbus, Ohio. This brave, spiritually illumined man has been completely paralyzed and blind for over 30 years, during which time he has been unable to move a single muscle. His nerve system is so far beyond capability of repair that he cannot command it to recover, but he has commanded his body to survive so that he can manifest love to his fellow man through the only two functions left to him for creative expression, his hearing and his voice. This amazing man is so vital and happy, mentally and spiritually, that by writing he earns an income sufficient for him to maintain a staff of attendants who take care of his physical and secretarial needs. He has hosts of friends and a great library of tape recordings of the memorable mental interchanges of their visits with him. I doubt if more than a few people who read his inspired writings know that he is utterly helpless physically, but so powerful mentally that he can command other bodies and his environment to give life to his creations by the power of his mind alone. On one of my memorable visits to him, he said to me, "I would rather have my body and what I know about God than the perfect body of any man who does not know God as I do." Fair enough. These examples illustrate the power which your mind or mine has to command our bodies to multiply our ability to fulfill the physical demands of our destiny. We also have equal power of mind to control the spiritual unfoldings of our destinies. No matter what you may desire to become in life, or whatever spiritual height you desire to ascend, you can attain that height if your desire is strong enough to be followed by the necessary actions which will elevate you to that height. No heights can be attained by wishful thinking or desire not followed by action. Whatever work you perform with deep desire, God will work with you by doing exactly as much for you as you do to manifest Him. The farmers or gardeners or foresters know this. They know that a little work given by them brings but little work done by nature. The giving and re-giving are always equal. The more service you give to nature, the more nature will work with you in her re-givings. Whatever destiny you plan for yourself, that destiny you can reach if your desire to reach it is strong enough. Desire alone is the controlling factor, not money, nor family, nor position. No one's influence can make you great. You alone control your own destiny. How many people utterly fail because of blaming other conditions and circumstances for their failures? A certain inventor who had a wonderful idea solicited capital from his friends for years to carry out his idea, then laid the blame for his failure upon his inability to raise capital. He wasted so much time trying to secure large capital instead of small capital to take one step at a time that he failed utterly. Thomas Edison, on the contrary, took one little step at a time to unfold the growth of his idea. His idea was a very big one, a very revolutionary one, yet he did not try to raise millions to finance it. He needed only a few dollars to take his first step. Every step after that took care of itself as it appeared. He always had enough money to take one step at a time, to make one step at a time. Had he started by raising the millions, which finally revolutionized the lighting industry, he would probably have failed as the inventor above quoted failed. His desire, persistence, and resourcefulness were worth more to him in unfolding his destiny than all the money in the world. How many thus alibis for their failures? I cannot do it because I do not know anyone in Washington who will give me letters of introduction to the higher ups, one will say. Another will say I was unable to go to college and blame his failure on that. Over and over again, you will hear people say he was lucky everyone gave him a break. One such man said to the father of a famous motion picture star, "How lucky your son is." "Yes, he is lucky," the father replied. "And the funny thing about it is, the harder he works, the luckier he is." Charles Goodyear transformed world transportation from the 5 miles an hour buggy days to the 70 miles an hour vulcanized rubber age. No one can ever attribute his success to luck. Every upward step of his progress was agonizing. One misfortune after another confronted him, which seemed to be the end of his road. Once during his upward climb, he was heralded as a great world benefactor. It was thought that he had succeeded in vulcanizing rubber, and fortunes were invested in making rubber overshoes for winter snows and in filling a huge government contract for rubber mailbags. These were highly successful during cold weather, but when the warm weather came, they partially melted into a sticky condition, which rendered them utterly useless for their purpose except in winter. Perhaps no greater blow ever befell an inventor. It would have killed many other weaker men than Goodyear. Even though all financial support became impossible, he continued, although his closest friends deserted him. He became so poor that he had no money to bury his dead child. It is said that his wife and he had to bury it in the woods of Woburn, as no one in the town would advance further money and he would not accept charity. Later on, his wife was very ill at a time when he was making his last possible experiment with the last of his natural rubber supplies. He had broken his furniture to keep the fire going for his experiment and to keep the room warm, which was occupied by his sick wife. He suddenly called out to him. She suddenly called out to him in distress. Leaving his boiling pot, he rushed to her room, forgetting all about his kettle while attending to her wants. Then came what seemed to be the final tragedy. The pot boiled over, and all his last precious rubber went into the fire. Seizing a fork, but with little hope of saving it, he immediately recognized the unmistakable sign which he had been looking for all those years. That accident demonstrated that wet heat and boiling would not vulcanize. It needed the dry heat of fire. Perhaps there is no greater demonstration of the control of one's destiny by man himself than the life story of Charles Goodyear. Likewise, there is no better demonstration of the adulation one's friends and neighbors bestow upon neighbors after they are dead, whom they have ignored while alive, than the story of the people of Woburn, who gathered together about 15 years ago to erect a tablet to his memory in the town and expressed their pride in their honored neighbor. How ludicrous it would be to say that Goodyear was lucky, or that Wagner, Brahms, the Wright brothers, or Marconi were lucky. There is no finer example in American history than that of the belief of the Wright brothers, that their destiny in life was to conquer air as a means of transportation for men. An age old adage says you can no more do what you are trying to do than you can fly. The Wright brothers not only disproved this assumption, but did it under the most difficult circumstances. I believe it would be easier to secure capital today to build spaceships for interplanetary transportation than it was in their day to raise money for so foolhardy an idea as to build ships for a man to fly in the air. As they could raise no money, they earned the money in a little bicycle repair shop. With the greatest economy and patience, coupled with hard work and an endurance born out of belief in their power to control their own destiny, the Wright brothers actually flew. Then one of the most thwarting things in human history happened. So strong was the belief that man could not fly that the official world denied that they flew for a long time after they had actually flown. When it was finally admitted that human beings could fly, millions of dollars could be raised more easily than tens could be raised before the fact was demonstrated. This fact is not of prime import in this story. What is of import is the fact that anyone who strongly believes in a heaven born inspiration given to him as knowledge of his destiny can fulfill that destiny. In doing so, however, he must know that creation means the expression of energy and work. One must not only be willing to work, but love to work. Willingness is not enough. Willingness has some reservations in its connotation. The creative mind must have no reservation. Whatever hurdles he must confront, he must meet with joy and full knowledge that he can surmount them and love the challenge of surmounting them. Those who do nothing because they cannot raise money to help them should realize that a very large percentage of the world's greatest men were born into poor families and had to work against terrific odds to get their first small start. They not only did not have money, they also did not have schooling. Many of them were also country boys who were raised in sparsely peopled back country and did not have even the possibility for opportunity which cities held. Abraham Lincoln was one of these. When you see a barefoot country boy driving his cattle home from pasture, it is a far stretch of the imagination to think of that boy becoming able to transform world practice, as Lincoln did. It is not safe to assume that he will not do so, however, for inklings of his destiny may have already whispered to his inner consciousness. So many country boys in this country and peasant boys in Europe have become world geniuses, inventors, or statesmen that it is safe to bow deeply before one out of the many with a feeling of certainty that he will make history someday. Every great man or woman who has ever lived was once an obscure child whom no one would pick out as a world figure. In the heart of one of the many of them was a clear picture of his destiny as he could see himself in the mirror. From that moment on, he reached out for his destiny by taking one step at a time until he reached his highest step. During that journey, he always met with tremendous difficulties, but every man who knows his destiny knows also that he will reach it. The only way that you can command your own destiny is to first vision it mentally. Make as clear a picture of it in your mind as you can, then take one little step at a time in unfolding it. Each step will give you a clearer picture of that destiny ahead and will bring you one step nearer to it. Never say, I cannot do it because I do not know how to do it. Start doing it and learn how to do it in the doing of it. Anyone knows how to take one step in the direction of his desire. When he takes that step, he can more clearly see his next step. Edison's little $3 battery was a first step towards his goal. He knew how to take that step, but he had to take it before he could know what the next step would be for him. You and I and everyone on earth are in that same position. We all had to start the same way. How many finish the race with honors is dependent only upon themselves. And those who do win the race of life with honors win it only because they either intuitively feel or dynamically know that God is working with them as they work in harmony with Him. That was the second to last chapter. We'll finish this here soon. All right.